Hi, I'm Kane County Chronicle sports editor Jay Schwab with sports reporter Kevin Drewley, and welcome to another edition of Preps Insider as we look ahead to the quarterfinal playoff matchups coming up this Saturday. And Kevin, we'll start off talking about Kaneland and Crystal Lake Central came to town, and Kaneland really after didn't need much time to pull away and keep that lead in good fashion. And I guess a thought on that matchup, and now the Knights finally have to make a bus trip. They've been at home quite a bit lately, and now they have an intriguing quarterfinal matchup coming up with Vernon Hills.
Right. Yeah, it was 7-7 early with Crystal Lake Central, but then they did what they've done really all year, and just went on a scoring binge and pulled away. It was 27-7 at half, and used a couple late drives late in the half to really take command and leave no doubt. And certainly we talk a lot about the offense, and they've piled up the points and the yards, but the defense, they only have statistically one shutout, but across the board they've played very well all season, and keeping the Knights unbeaten. The most glaring thing you see from Saturday's game is Gage Hare, the running back for Crystal Lake Central, comes into the game with over 1,500 yards, and they bottle him up for I believe it was 45 yards on 15 carries. So really stifled him. And defense, will really be the talk of this coming matchup with Vernon Hills. They're a team that I know we've talked about earlier this season on the show a little bit in passing, but started the year out with 7 shutouts and allowed only 27 points coming into the first or coming into the second round game this last week. So we'll see if they can keep that up. Certainly, Kaneland poses a challenge to anybody. I don't care who you are, which conference you come from. So yeah, Kaneland, I don't know if they surprised anybody doing it, but they certainly pulled ahead from that one real easily and real early. So they're right. They've been on the road for the better part of the second half of the season, and especially the last month. They returned home in Week 8 for that big game with Sycamore, and closed with Morris at home too, and then these first 2 rounds of the playoffs, and that's kind of what got them into postseason mode, so to speak. So they'll take the bus trip northeast and see how they do. People talk about Vernon Hills, almost similarly as they do Kaneland, and who have they really played. And in that shutout streak, they faced a couple playoff teams, and they shut them out with Grant Lakes and Antioch. So they have a little bit of the pedigree, and so does Kaneland. But I see a pretty good game where it's kind of strength versus strength, which we've seen a lot of. And I know that was a little bit of what Coach Thorpe was saying in the game. Marmion and TF South, and just really Marmion kind of surviving really a near-death experience and near elimination, and the goal line stand at the end. So just what did you see from that?
Yeah, we're pretty certain that Marmion's not going to be able to top last week's game in terms of pure excitement, pure drama. Doesn't get much better than that, Kevin. A playoff game, and comes down to TF South making the decision to go for 2, which I thought was a pretty good decision with the penalty, giving them half the distance, only having to go 1.5 yards to win the game. I mean, you gotta take your chances, I think, there. But Marmion got that stop, and what a terrific moment. No matter what happens the rest of the season for the Cadets, and I know they're wanting to take it all the way to Champaign, but they'll have a pretty sweet memory there to make a stand like that to move on to the quarterfinals. Lamont, after eliminating Batavia, eliminating Geneva, is now going to try to keep running roughshod over our teams this week coming into Marmion for that state quarterfinal matchup. And I'd expect a pretty low-scoring game, Kevin. I think Marmion's defense has been maybe even a little ahead of its offense throughout the course of the season. Cadets have a terrific defensive unit, and they did get bit by a couple big plays by TF South, and Lamont has kind of a marquee receiver in Lee Taylor, who is certainly capable of doing that to them too. So I think the Cadets need to do a little troubleshooting in the secondary and try to keep those receivers in front of them, certainly. But beyond that, I even if they give up a big play or 2 here or there, I think it's going to be a game played in the teens or the 20s. Lamont's defense, seen them a couple weeks in a row now against Batavia and Geneva, and man, that's a legitimate defensive unit. So I think points are going to be at a premium, and if Marmion is the team that can solve this vexing Lamont puzzle, I think it'll be a game that's won first and foremost by playing excellent defense and doing enough offensively to get past them. So that should be a close, low-scoring affair, I would think. And another suburban Christian team still alive, Aurora Christian. I know Coach Gasperi at Batavia mentioned at the start of the year that there's a history with some 5-4 teams here and there that have been able to, despite kind of those so-so records going into the playoffs, have been able to turn on that faucet in the postseason and really make it happen. And I think Aurora Christian's next in that line. A couple wins now.
They're definitely in the right bloodline because some of those past 5-4 success stories in the playoffs have been from their own league with Manka Conception and Montini and those kinds of teams. So they feel good about really being rounded out, and everybody knows about Coach Beebe and Anthony Matty and the way they throw and score. But the defense has really answered the bell so far in these playoffs. Had a couple kind of games where they allowed quite a few points and some lopsided conference losses late in the season, and they kind of go to play teams with really different philosophies and schemes altogether on offense to really just run first, power I, wing T, any kind of teams that just really want to pound it up the gut. And against Oregon, they stacked the box and did very well, and then Wilmington too, they limited pretty well, winning 18-16. And this week they get Stillman Valley, and we'll see if they can beat a second straight undefeated team. They go back to the Big Northern Conference, which is they beat Oregon, in that playoff opener. So, what they do score and 3 touchdowns. I know Coach Beebe said if we can get 21 points, we feel like that's good enough to win. And they missed their 3 tries. A kick failed, a run failed, and a pass failed. So we'll see if that doesn't catch up to them. These PATs and these conversions, because points are points, and obviously they come in handy at the very end when they're close like that.
They tend to,
so
yes.
They tend to, depending on what kind of game it is. So, yeah, you don't want that happening too much, and hopefully they can get some kind of kicking game down and go from there. So that'll that if that hasn't caught up to them already, you would think it will at this point, especially against an undefeated team. So, we mentioned Lamont, and we've mentioned Lamont a lot these past few shows, and I especially liked your line in Saturday's story about them kind of getting to be public enemy number 1 around here, just with them playing so many teams so often in Batavia and Geneva. But you were down there again this week and saw the end of the Viking season, and just your impressions. I mean, they really turned it on and were winning 8 in a row. But just what did Lamont do, or what did Geneva not do?
Yeah, it was not by any stretch the Vikings' best night this time around. It was a game where they were pretty much in a 48-minute long funk for the most part, with a couple decent moments mixed in, but they were not anywhere near the clicking at the level that they have been down the stretch. And certainly Lamont gets a great deal of credit for that unbeaten team and an excellent defensive team. But yeah, and Connor Quinn, your stud back, not being healthy, I think certainly might have detracted a little bit from just that team's mojo. He's a guy, when he's playing well, he obviously inspires a lot of confidence, and so maybe that factors in a little. So it was a kind of a poor game to end the season, but in the big picture, still, with Geneva only returning a handful of starters from last year's team to win a conference championship and win 8 ball games in a row. I think it really reflects well, again on that Geneva program. Another very strong season, and I think there's probably on paper going to be more cause for optimism maybe at the start of the year next year than there was at the start of the year this year. Mm-hmm. You got a quarterback coming back who was darn good as a junior, and knowing his work ethic, you figure he might be scary good as a senior, Matt Williams, and he'll have a few guys in that receiving core, Rogers and Hickey, and tight end Eink back, who have had some success this season. So at least offensively, you would think that Geneva their starting point next year might be a little bit farther ahead, but the question is, can they pull another monster, power back out of the hat like they have, for Rattay, Santa Catarina, and Quinn of most recent vintage. But I guess that'll be the question, where, how and where they can come up with a guy like that. Right. But good season for Geneva, and we appreciate you joining us this week for Preps Insider. For Kevin, I'm Jay Schwab, and we'll hope to be back next week to break down some of those quarterfinal playoff games and see if anyone moves within 2 wins of a state championship. We'll see you next week.